My name is Ariella Grant. I'm 26 years old. And the night my parents told me I wasn't half the woman my sister is, everything inside me broke. Everything I'd been holding together for years just shattered into 1,000 pieces I didn't know how to pick up. This story is intense. It gets darker before it gets brighter. And I need you to watch until the end because what happens, it's something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. Before we even dive in, hit that like button, subscribe to Revenge Queens, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Shout out to New York, Texas, Chicago, Florida, and California. Let me know you're there. Let me know I'm not alone in this. I need you to understand something about me first. I'm not the loud sibling. I never have been. I'm not timid. Don't get me wrong, but I learned very early in my life that speaking up in my family only causes more chaos. More problems. More reasons for them to look at me like I'm the difficult one. So, I became quiet. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because saying them never changed anything. It only made things worse. I work as a project analyst. Numbers, timelines, deliverables, things that make sense. Things that follow rules. Things that don't suddenly change the narrative on you when it's convenient. I find comfort in order. In independence. In knowing that if I do my part, the system works. But families? Families don't work like spreadsheets. They don't follow logic. And mine? Mine operated on a completely different set of rules that I was never taught. And by the way, stories like this take courage to tell. Real courage. If you're not subscribed yet, at least tell me why in the comments. Don't ghost me like my family did. I need to know you're listening. My daily life in Tacoma was stable. Predictable. I'd wake up at 6, make coffee in my small but cozy apartment, work from home most days, and spend my evenings reading or meal prepping. It was peaceful. Controlled. Mine. But every Sunday, that peace shattered. Sunday dinners at my parents' house were mandatory. Not optional. Not if you can make it. Mandatory. And every single week, I'd drive the 20 minutes to their house with this weight settling into my chest, heavier and heavier the closer I got. The heaviness wasn't about the food or even the time commitment. It was about the emotional labor, the performance, the constant feeling that no matter what I did, I was playing a role I never auditioned for, the background character in someone else's story. That someone else was my sister, Emery. Emery is 2 years younger than me, and from the moment she learned to smile, she was the sun in our family's solar system. Everything revolved around her. Everything. She's charismatic, magnetic, the kind of person who walks into a room and people just notice. And our parents? They didn't just notice. They worshipped. Every accomplishment Emery had was a national holiday. She got promoted at work? Champagne. She bought a new car? Family photo shoot. She sneezed in a particularly charming way. Probably a parade. I'm not exaggerating. I wish I were. Meanwhile, I could tell them I got a raise, a new certification, finished a massive project ahead of schedule, and I'd get a distracted, "Oh, that's nice, honey," before the conversation immediately pivoted back to Emery's latest Instagram post. I learned early that my achievements didn't land. They didn't register. So, I stopped sharing them. What was the point? But this particular weekend, something felt different. Wrong. My parents were overly formal when I arrived. Like they were hosting a business dinner instead of a family meal. My mom kept glancing at Emery with this secretive smile, and my dad kept adjusting his collar like he was nervous. Emery herself was acting oddly proud. Smug even. Like she was holding on to the world's best secret and couldn't wait to let it explode. There was a surprise announcement, atmosphere hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. I should have left then. I should have faked a headache and driven home. But I didn't. Because despite everything, some pathetic part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Dinner started the way it always did. My mom brought out her famous pot roast, my dad poured wine, and within 30 seconds, the entire conversation centered around Emery. "So, Emery, tell us more about the promotion," my mom gushed, even though Emery had already talked about it for 45 minutes the week before. Emery launched into the story again, with even more dramatic flair this time. I pushed my food around my plate and tried to find something interesting about the floral centerpiece. I waited for a pause, a break in the Emery show. And when I finally got one, I took a breath and said, "Actually, I have some good news too. I was selected to lead the—" "That's wonderful, sweetheart," my dad interrupted without even looking at me. "Emery, did you tell them about the award?" The words died in my throat. Emery beamed and launched into another story. I went back to studying the centerpiece. Then my father said something that made my stomach drop. "You know, Emery, your mother and I were just saying you really saved this family during the financial crisis. We don't know what we would have done without you." Financial crisis? My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "We were on the verge of losing the house," my mom added, reaching over to squeeze Emery's hand. "And you stepped up when it mattered most." Emery had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, but she didn't correct them. I felt like I was underwater, like I couldn't breathe. Because here's the thing, Emery didn't save anything. I did. For the last 14 months, I'd been secretly sending my parents $2,500 every single month to cover their mortgage. $2,500 I didn't have. Money I scraped together by taking on extra freelance work, skipping meals, canceling subscriptions, wearing the same 3 outfits on rotation. I didn't tell anyone because my father is proud, stubborn, the kind of man who would rather lose his house than admit he needed help. So I set up automatic transfers from my account to theirs and told them it was from an anonymous family friend who wanted to help. They believed it because they wanted to, and I let them because I thought. I don't know what I thought. That maybe they'd figure it out eventually. That maybe they'd realize. But they didn't. They gave the credit to Emery. The table was glowing with pride. My parents were looking at Emery like she'd hung the moon, and she was soaking it in with this sickeningly humble smile. And then my mother said it. She looked directly at me with this expression of gentle pity and said, "Honestly, Ariella, you're not even half the woman your sister grew up to be." The room went silent. Not the kind of silence that's peaceful. The kind that's violent. The kind that crushes your chest and fills your ears with static. My mother smiled like she'd just given me helpful advice. My father nodded in agreement. Emery looked down at her plate, but she didn't say a word. And something inside me snapped. I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped against the hardwood floor, loud and harsh. Everyone looked at me. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "If Emery is such a hero," I said slowly, "then she can start covering the house payments I've been secretly making for the last 14 months. The color drained from my father's face. "Payments?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What payments?" My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Emery froze. "The $2,500 a month that's been keeping this house out of foreclosure," I continued, my voice getting stronger. "The money you thought came from some mysterious anonymous donor? That was me. It's always been me." If your jaw would have dropped too, this is your reminder to subscribe to Revenge Queens. And if you still won't, comment why. I'm genuinely curious what's stopping you. The aftermath was immediate and ugly. My father tried to deny it. "We didn't know. Ariella, we had no idea." "You didn't want to know," I shot back. "You wanted to believe it was anyone but me because that fit your narrative better." My mother reached for me. "Sweetheart, if we'd known, you would have what? Thanked me? Acknowledged me? Or would you have just found another way to make it about Emery?" Emery finally spoke. "Ari, I didn't know. I swear I didn't. But you didn't correct them either, did you?" I grabbed my purse. "You just sat there and let them crown you the family savior while I bled myself dry to keep this roof over your heads." I didn't wait for a response. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. The next morning, I canceled the automatic transfers. Just like that. 14 months of payments, and I stopped them with 3 clicks on my banking app. I sat in my apartment staring at my bank account balance, a balance that was about to start actually growing for the first time in over a year, and I cried. Not sad tears. Angry tears. Relieved tears. Confused tears. All of it at once. And then I made a decision. I was going to invest in myself for the first time in years. I signed up for a pottery class I'd been eyeing forever. I started going on morning runs. I bought groceries without calculating every single item's price. I got a haircut at an actual salon instead of doing it myself in the bathroom. Small things. But they felt revolutionary. For 3 weeks, I didn't hear from my family. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. Part of me was relieved. Part of me was devastated. But I was starting to feel like myself again. Like a person with value beyond what I could provide. And then, on a random Tuesday afternoon, my neighbor Mrs. Chin knocked on my door. "Ariella, dear," she said, holding out her phone. "I thought you should see this. Your parents posted it on the neighborhood group." I took the phone, and I went completely numb. It was a photo of a banner hanging across my parents' front porch. Giant letters. Bright colors. Professionally made. "Congratulations, Emery, for saving our home." I stared at that photo for a full minute without blinking. They didn't just fail to credit me. They actively erased me. They threw a celebration for Emery. They made a banner. They announced it to the entire neighborhood. And I realized in that moment that they truly, genuinely believed their own story. They'd rewritten history so completely that I wasn't even a footnote. Mrs. Chun touched my arm. "Are you all right, dear?" I handed her phone back. "I'm perfect. Thank you for showing me." I wasn't perfect, but I knew exactly what I needed to do. I went back into my apartment and opened my laptop. I pulled every single document, every bank statement, every transfer confirmation, every email exchange about the anonymous donation. I organized them chronologically. I created a clean, professional slideshow with dates, amounts, and screenshots. I spent 6 hours on it. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just built my case like I was preparing the most important project presentation of my life. Because in a way I was. 2 days later, I got a text from my mother. "Family appreciation dinner this Saturday at Lakeview Hall. 6 p.m. Don't be late. We're honoring Emery for everything she's done." I stared at that text for a long time. And then I replied, "I'll be there." If your heart is pounding at this point, don't pretend you don't want more stories like this. Hit subscribe to Revenge Queens, or tell me in the comments why you're holding back. I genuinely want to know. Saturday arrived. I drove to Lakeview Hall in complete silence. No music. No podcasts. Just the sound of my own breathing. The venue was beautiful. My parents had clearly spent money they didn't have on this. There were floral arrangements everywhere, a catered buffet, a slideshow projector set up at the front. Family members I hadn't seen in years were there. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone dressed up like this was a wedding. Emery stood near the front in a new dress, accepting hugs and congratulations. My parents were glowing. I slipped in quietly and stood in the back. My father approached the microphone. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "We wanted to gather everyone together to honor someone very special. Someone who, when our backs were against the wall, stepped up and saved this family." People clapped. My mother joined him, dabbing at her eyes. "Emery," she said, her voice breaking, "you are the strongest, most selfless person we know. When we were about to lose everything, you found a way. You protected us. You are half the woman we always knew you'd become." The irony of that phrasing wasn't lost on me. Emery stood to accept the microphone, looking genuinely emotional. And that's when I walked forward. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said loudly, clearly. Everyone turned. My father's face went pale. "Ariella, this isn't the time." "Actually, Dad, this is exactly the time." I pulled out a small remote from my purse, the one that connected to the projector. Before Emery gives her speech, I think everyone should see something. I clicked the button. The screen behind them changed. And my slideshow began. The first slide was simple. The truth about who saved the house. Then came the bank statements. One after another. $2,500. Every month. 14 months. All from my account. All transferred to my parents' mortgage. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father tried to approach me. Ariella, stop this. No, I said firmly. You don't get to silence me anymore. The slides continued. Emails where I asked my parents how they were doing financially. Their responses saying they were managing, thanks to a generous donor. Screenshots of my freelance invoices showing how I'd worked myself to exhaustion. A timeline showing that Emery's generous contribution never actually existed. The room was dead silent, except for the click of the slides advancing. When the presentation ended, I turned to face everyone. My voice didn't shake. Credit doesn't belong to whoever shouts the loudest, I said. It belongs to the person who actually showed up. I looked at Emery. She was crying. I looked at my parents. They were frozen. I looked at the rest of my family, their expressions ranging from shock to shame to confusion. Emery didn't save you. I continued. I did. And you were so busy worshiping her that you never even bothered to ask where the money was actually coming from. My mother tried to speak. Sweetheart, we didn't. You didn't want to know, I finished. Because it was easier to make her the hero than to admit I was capable of being one. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out of that hall with my head high. Behind me, I heard chaos erupt. Voices overlapping. My father trying to calm everyone down. Emery sobbing. I got in my car and drove home. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt free. 3 days later, my parents showed up at my apartment. They didn't call first. They just knocked. I almost didn't answer. But I did. They stood in my doorway looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Can we come in? My father asked quietly. I stepped aside. We sat in my living room in awkward silence for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 2 minutes. Finally, my mother spoke. We were wrong. I didn't respond. We were so wrong, Ariella, my father added, his voice cracking. We don't have an excuse. We can't justify it. We failed you. My mother was crying. We've been thinking, and we want to transfer partial ownership of the house to you. You paid for it. You deserve.
No, I said.
They both looked shocked. I don't want the house, I continued. I don't want your money. I don't want partial ownership or repayment or any of it. Then what do you want? My father asked desperately. I looked at them both.
Really looked at them.
I only ever wanted the truth, I said. I wanted you to see me. Actually see me. Not as the quiet one. Not as the responsible one. Not as Emery's sister. As Ariella. As your daughter. As someone who is worth noticing. Real talk, if I've earned your subscription at this point, hit it. If not, tell me honestly why in the comments. I can take it. My parents left that day with a promise to do better. I don't know if they will. I don't know if our relationship will ever be what I wanted it to be. But here's what I do know. I know that silence isn't peace. It's just delayed pain. I know that being quiet to keep the peace only works if other people value peace as much as you do. I know that my worth isn't determined by whether my family acknowledges it. And I know that the only story I need to protect is my own. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been the one who gave everything and got nothing in return, if you've ever been told you're not enough while watching someone else take credit for your work, you're not alone. Tell me your story in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Revenge Queens for more stories about taking your power back. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can rewrite your story is you. My name is Ariella Grant. I'm 26 years old. And I'm done being half of anything. I'm whole. All on my own.